Thank you. Welcome back from the break. One other thing I'll mention is that I have been working with a team of faculty at St. Mary's to develop content in other libraries, not just chemistry. So I might actually be one of the more experienced people with these other libraries. Okay, so I'm here to show you how to use the Remixer. Let me share my screen with you. All right, so we should start by going to our home libraries. So my home library is chemistry, so I'm going to go there and I'm going to log in. I'm actually already logged in, and I know that because there's this black bar here. So before we learn how to use the Remixer, which by the way, is the link is right here on this black bar, it's worth taking a moment to notice what we have here in front of us. So no matter what library you're in, when you're logged in, you should see at least 3 different icons. One would be campus bookshelves. The other is the main bookshelves area. And then sandboxes is the third. And then there might be some additional things depending on what library you're in. I'm going to go to campus bookshelves first to show you where your course would live eventually. So campus bookshelves is organized by different campuses. So you'll see a bunch of different institutions here. You might have an icon here already, or maybe not, if you're the first person from your institution. I'm going to go to my institution and just show you my courses. So these are course shells. So within each institution, you have different course shells. So I'm a bioinorganic chemist. I teach bioinorganic chemistry and inorganic chemistry. So here are my 2 courses that I use for LibreText. Within each course, I have a structure for my course. So in this particular example, I actually use LibreText as my course landing page. So I don't use an LMS, I actually just use LibreText. So I have the Start Here module, I have the course agenda, and here's my textbook, the readings. And then I also have a section for assignments. So the students navigate my course through this course agenda, and I have links to everything that they need to do. So their reading assignments actually all link to a place in their textbook. So if I clicked on this, it would take me to the textbook that I've designed for them. There's also a course I have that I only use the textbook. So I only use it as the textbook. So here's an example of a course where mainly it's just the readings, or what you might call the text. So you can use LibreText in different ways depending on what is, what makes the most sense in terms of pedagogy for your course. So the Remixer is going to be focused on how to put together a textbook. So I call it readings in my course, you might call it textbook, but it is able to put together a textbook for you using the content that's already in LibreText. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to point out that there's breadcrumbs at the top here at this light blue bar, which I can use to jump back to my home page on my library. So there's also this bookshelves area, and this is where a lot of the content on LibreText lives within your library. So there may be some content in the campus bookshelves that you find useful, and there might also be quite a bit of information or resources in the bookshelves. So in the bookshelves, in chemistry at least, it's divided up into different subdisciplines. So I'm an inorganic chemist, and within each subdiscipline, there are different types of things. So we have exercises here, and we have books. So a book, notice that there is also something called a map. So a book is a published open source textbook that has been brought into LibreText. And so all the content from that book are available, or is available in each one of these things. So most of you have probably heard of OpenStax, like OpenStax textbook would be a book. There's also things called maps. So maps are a map of the content that exists in the books to a different commercial textbook. So it just organizes the information in a similar way as you might find in a commercial textbook. And that's helpful to some faculty that are already using that textbook. Okay, so then there's also the sandboxes. So whoops, I'm going to go back to my home. And so sandboxes, if you click on this link, you'll find a bunch of different areas for each user. And so you should probably all have a sandbox at this point. And the area within the sandbox that's dedicated to you is a place where you can play and make things and create things or edit them for your students. And then eventually, once you have created your textbook, you can move it to a course shell later. So we're gonna start now talking about the remixer. And so I'm gonna click on this link. So the remixer here is where I wanna go. And when this opens, I wanna point out a few things. So the first thing I wanna point out is that there's a link here to the construction guide. So later, when you wanna know, you wanna remember what I've told you today, or you're looking for help, you can go to the construction guide. So I'm gonna click on that link and just show you where it takes me. It takes me to the LibreText construction guide, and I'm in chapter 7, which is dedicated to the remix content. This is in the campus bookshelves and inside something called Remixer University. I'm gonna click there and just show you that there's the LibreText construction guide, which has detailed information, but also a quick guide to LibreText for new instructors. And within this, there's a section for the remixer, which allows you to access a video from Brent. So that goes over all of the same things that we're gonna talk about today. So if you ever need, in the next couple days, if you wanna go review that information, it's available there. And there's also handy stuff in chapter 7 there in the construction guide. Okay, so let's go back to the remixer. So the remixer is useful for bringing content from different places in LibreText into a curated textbook that you want to share with your students. So when I open the remixer, the default is that it's in a new remix mode. So notice that there's 2 options here, new and edit. So you can also edit an existing textbook in your sandbox if you wish, but that's not what we're doing right now. We're gonna create something new. And there's also this load from previous session button. And before you start remixing a textbook, it does help to have a plan. And there's lots of different ways that you could make a plan for your textbook. One of the ways that I like, I'm going to change the way I'm sharing here, is the spreadsheet. So this is a spreadsheet. There's a template for this in the construction guide that you can access, and you can actually use it as a template for your course. And just in general, like there's the title here that I've called Demo Inorganic Chemistry Course. And there's a column here for the chapter number, the name of the chapter for my textbook that I'd like to create, the section number for my textbook, and then the titles and maybe links to different pages in LibreText that are going to build my curated textbook. So this is just a demo course. So for chapter 1, I'm going to take all of chapter 1 from a text map that I like it's called Mies Learned Tar, the title's there. And then everything is actually from that text map except for some things that I'd like to pull from the math library that will help my students remember the math that they need for my course. Okay, so I have a plan. This does take time to create, and the remixer is a lot more, it's a little easier to use when you already have a plan. So I'm gonna call this my Demo Inorganic Chemistry text. So I put the title here. I have the option over here to show a tutorial. So this could help me if you're doing this, or help you if you're doing it on your own. I'm not gonna turn that on right now. And there's also this default enable auto number, which I recommend that you leave on. There's also some auto number options. I wouldn't change these until you're really experienced with the remixer. You'd want to leave the default copy mode as copy transclude. And then there's 2 panels down here. So we have the library panel, and you'll notice some familiar things. So I talked earlier about the different areas on LibreText, like the campus bookshelves, the main bookshelves, and my sandboxes. So then there's some other things here in the chemistry library that you might not see. Right here, I see that I'm in the chemistry library, but I can change that if I wanted to. So for the textbooks or the content that I want to pull from mathematics, I'm going to change my library to mathematics. So that's the library panel. The Remix panel is my new textbook. So right now it's an empty textbook. So there's something called front matter, which you don't want to change. And then there's a bunch of chapters that are empty chapters that we can modify. And notice that my demo inorganic chemistry textbook, that title there came from the title I gave it up here in this text box. Okay, so once I have my plan and I have my remixer in front of me, I can just start working. So because I have looked in the bookshelves and I found the things that I want, I know where I can go get them. So I'm going to go into bookshelves, expand that option, and then go down to inorganic chemistry. And I'm going to find that text map that I really like. And I want to pull all of chapter 1 into this book. So I can expand that if I want to. I have 5 different sections, but I don't need to expand that. I can just use the entire chapter because I just want that whole chapter. So to add this to my textbook, I just click and drag over to the Remix pane. And so notice that the Remixer tells you exactly where you're going to drop this. So when I move my cursor, the little arrow icon changes. So there's a blue arrow and a green arrow and then a little black line. And that tells you exactly where you're going to drop it. So right here, I have it positioned so that it will drop just above chapter 1. And so if I drop it there, it will be my new chapter 1 because I have auto number enabled and it will just change all the numbers. If I drop it between 1 and 2, it would become chapter 2. And if I move my cursor up to hover right over chapter 1, it would actually drop it inside of chapter 1. So notice how that little arrow icon changes position and the black line disappears when I go from between chapters to within a chapter. So I want this to be chapter 1, so I'm going to drop it right under the front matter and right above chapter 1. And then the Remixer automatically knows that I want this to be chapter 1. And it's calling it Introduction to Inorganic Chemistry. All of the names are the same as they were in the original text. But I wanted my my chapter here to be called What is an Inorganic Chemistry? So I can click on that name and I can press this Edit Page Properties and change the name of that chapter if I wish. Don't change this number. I think it will automatically override it if you do. Okay, so I've got chapter 1 taken care of. So now I want to take care of my chapter 2. So this is where I'm going to pull some of the content from this textbook and some of the content from the math libraries. So I'm actually going to use this kind of empty chapter as my holding spot for these new sections. I guess what I should also point out here is that the icons here have some meaning. So when you see multiple books, that is the icon for a book. The one that looks like a book is actually a chapter. And then this icon means page. So here I have different chapters and I have pages within my chapter or sections within my chapter. So here's chapter 2. I'm going to change its name to Some Math We'll Need. And then I want to pull some things from a book in the math library. So I need to change my library to mathematics. It's in my bookshelves in near algebra, and it is the Waldron textbook, chapter 1. And I want 3 of the sections here, which I've identified as sections that I want within chapter 1. So what I do is I just drag each one of those sections into chapter 2. And notice that the Remixer automatically knows what section number I wanted for that. So I'm going to take 1.2 and now it's going to be 2.2 in my text and 2.3. So that was the first 3 sections of chapter 2. And then I want to go back to chemistry and find the other sections. So 4.3 so basically these three are the next. Okay, and that wraps up my chapter 2. And then I will just do those 2 chapters for a moment and, you know, assume that I'm kind of happy with those. These extra chapters that I don't want right now, I can delete them by pressing that delete icon up here that looks like a trash can. And I'm gonna leave the back matter there. So I can come back and add chapter 3 and 4 later if I want to. Now I'm happy with this for the moment. I'm gonna save it to the server. And then the remixer lets me know that there are 4 pages that will be blank. So those are the front matter pages and some of the chapter pages. I can add content to them later, but I don't need to. I'm going to copy transclude 12 pages. Nothing is forked and nothing is copy full. So that's good. We want to transclude our pages. And then you have to click the save to server button so that it will actually save it to the server. And then it tells you its progress. So it's proceeding to copy transclude the pages that I asked it to do. And there will be a link to my text right here. So I'm going to wait. You don't have to wait, but I'm going to wait because this is a very small text. It should be done in just a moment. And it tells me it's complete. And now I can click on this. All of the remix texts are automatically saved to the sandbox for each user. So if you click on this link, it will take you to the book in your sandbox. And we can confirm that by just looking up here at the breadcrumbs. I'm in the sandboxes, and this is my username. And here's my text. So if I click on my username, I would see the text itself alone in my sandbox because that's the only thing I have. And so this icon here is the default icon for any new text. If I wanted to change that, I could go in here and it's available. Settings are available in the page settings option. So you have to expand this option here if you want to change the icon that shows up on the page or any summary that you might want to add. So there are some other options here for advanced editing that I won't talk about now. But here, it's the front matter that was created for me. And I'll show you that in a minute. And then the chapter 1 that I pulled from that other book is here. So here's an example of where there's a description of the page. I'll point out that the front matter for the textbook is automatically generated. That is so you'll have a title page that's automatically generated for you. This is nice when your students want to print the textbook that you've created, and it has some information about LibreText. Okay. And then I will also point out here, just make sure I didn't miss anything that I wanted to talk about. If I want to change this, so if I want to go back now and add chapter 3 and 4, or if I wanted to change something about the structure of my textbook, all I need to do is hit that remixer button again. It helps if you're in the textbook already, because then the remixer lets you, so if I'm going to switch this mode to edit. Yes, I do want to swap to remix mode. And see this last length. So it knew that I was just in this demo inorganic chemistry text. So I'm going to click that and I'm going to remix that selection. So it's convenient if you're in the text when you click the remixer button, because it's easy to find it. Otherwise, you can always find it in the library panel. And here it is. So I can go ahead and add chapter 3 if I wanted by clicking new page. Oops. And so when I clicked on chapter 2 and clicked new page, it added it to chapter 2. And all I need to do is drag it out of there. Now it's chapter 3 and I could start editing chapter 3. And then I could save it to the server. Okay, so there's one more thing that I want to point out about remixed text. And that is what is a copy transcluded page. So here, I'm going to go to section 1.1 here. And this was a page that I pulled from another textbook. And this page doesn't actually exist here. So I'm going to press the edit button and show you. You can't actually edit the content on this page because the page doesn't exist here. It's actually linked back to a different page. So if you would want to change this, so if you want to change the pedagogy, you don't like part of the section, or you wanted to add your own description of something, you wanted to change something about this, you would want to hit the forker button, which is right here. So it's best to copy transclude everything. That way, if there's a typo in this page and someone went to the main library and edited that typo, then it would also be corrected in your textbook. So it's a good idea to leave your pages copy transcluded unless you want to change the pedagogy or the way that the page is structured. If you do want to do that, then you can hit the forker button, and that will create a new copy of the page that you can change its content. So now I've pressed the forker button and here it is. So now when I press edit, I can change something about this page. So if I didn't like this first paragraph, for example, I could delete it and add my own. And then save it. And now I have this new customized content in my sandbox in this inorganic chemistry text. So you can really customize the textbook however you choose as the instructor. Okay. So we're going to give you guys some time to try this on your own. I'll take questions at this point. Or we can go out to discussion groups. What do you guys want to do?
Well, I think we can take a couple of minutes for sort of broad questions, but let's not get too stuck in the weeds of precisely how to do stuff. That's really what this next breakout session is for. So if you have some sort of broad questions about what Kathryn talked about, go ahead and do that now. And then we'll move into the breakout rooms in just a couple of minutes. So Stacy, yeah, go ahead.
So well, I don't know. You know what? What's it? I don't know the technical meaning of transcluded, except that it's linked to another existing page. So the content is linked there, but it doesn't actually exist on the page. You wouldn't know the difference if you were just a user looking at the content. You would only know the difference if you clicked edit and tried to change the content.
So you're probably familiar with that concept in different ways. If you're a PC person, then you understand shortcuts, and that's a transclusion. If you're a Mac person, you understand aliases, which is transclusion. Or if you're a Linux person, you understand symbolic links. Those are all examples of transclusion, where something behaves differently than what it really is, or it mimics a book or page or link, but it's really somewhere else.
I do have a question. I hope that this is broad. I got lost along the way. I'm hoping that you can maybe start from the very, very beginning and just kind of like from maybe like exactly like the very start of where you started, and then how to get into the place where we can actually, you know, like step 1, step 2. If you could just start again, that would be very helpful.
Okay, I don't think we're gonna have a time to go over the whole thing right now. I mean, I could if you want.
Yeah, just the very start of it, so we can.
Yeah. So how about this? I'm gonna point you to a video that is already existing, kind of the same thing that I just went on. But to get to the remixer, you click this button here. So are you logged in?
Yes.
So then you should see a black bar, and everyone should see this remixer button. And if you click that remixer button, it takes you to the remixer.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so just watch me for a minute.
Yeah.
So this is where,
Yeah, and I was having a little side conversation with Del Mar. I think this is my problem. I think I need to go back a little bit because what I see on my black bar is different. I don't have edit, I don't have new, I do have downloads. I have Remixer downloads, site tools, and my name, and that's
So we should have used a less powerful account. So because Kathryn is a developer, she has a bit more features than what the average instructor is. So you're not going to have those options in the black bar. And for the intent of this use, you're not going to use any of those options, even if you did have them. So the only thing that matters is what's actually on right below all the navigation bars and the remixer itself.
Okay, and then I
You have
never
the
was
remixer,
able to
right?
find, I never was able to get that copy transclude recommended.
You're also not going to have that. So
Okay.
again,
Okay.
we should have mentioned, and that used to be a feature that we provided to people, but then we decided to remove it in order to handle simplicity. But again, we should have also demonstrated it removed so we don't have confusion. So I apologize for that.
Okay, I think I'm good then.
So let me mention something just in general about how this thing operates. So the utility of the remixer is predicated on having a central infrastructure, a repository of OER content that has already been sliced and diced and organized in pages with the same standard, the same format, so you can actually use them as Lego pieces, like the example I showed before, in order to be able to do that. If you have a PDF, that is not sliced and diced in order to be able to do that. So the harvesting team, which is one of our multiple teams on our development, greater development team, their job, and it's largely about 100 to 120 undergraduate students at UC Davis that have been focusing on this, is to take existing OER, digest it up, rip it apart, and put it into the format so you're able to process it. And that lets us be able to use the remixer as it's done. But if things were fragmented in different parts of the OER universe, like if you have one instance that supports it, shows it somewhere else, and some other campus has it in a different place, one campus may update it, but the other campus doesn't have it updated or updates in a different way. It's difficult to reconcile it for curation, and it's difficult in order to be able to come in and slice them up and mix them together. So this is the power of a centralized approach, which underlies the LibreText aspect. Without a centralized approach, it'd be very difficult in order to do this sort of aspect. And that is why we pursue this approach, is to give you the power to rapidly construct your book instantly, not instantly, but rapidly, in order to be able to get out there. And hence why we have that major thrust in our efforts.